Imagine this. It's opening day, and Bobby Witt Jr., who was born in June of 2000 and was heralded as the top prospect in baseball, is starting in the same lineup as Zack Greinke, who was drafted when Witt wasn't even 2 years old and has to this point had one of the most interesting careers of anyone to put on a Royals uniform. If you're a fan of the Kansas City Royals in 2022, you don't have to imagine this. It's reality. These two players were added to the Major League roster before the season started, and many Royals fans, myself included, started the season hopeful that it would be a turning point for a franchise that hasn't had a winning season since 2015. A month into the season, though, it hasn't quite turned out that way, and there's some pretty glaring flaws on this team that might give some explanation as to why things haven't exactly gone to plan. Hey everyone, my name's Alex Burbage, and in this video, I'm going to analyze these factors and give my solutions that could lead to a better rest of the season for my Royals. Dayton Moore, if you're watching this, give these ideas some thought. They might be just what saved the season. One of the hallmarks of the Royals' World Series runs in 2014 and 2015 was their lockdown bullpen. Kelvin Herrera, Wade Davis, and Greg Holland all combined to form the greatest bullpen trio in Major League history, and the Royals have tried to replicate that formula in last season, and it's actually worked pretty well. Jake Brentz, Scott Barlow, and Josh Staumont were all top-tier relievers in 2021, and there was no reason to believe that they wouldn't repeat their success in 2022. One of the key things about HDH, as they were called, was that they were consistent over multiple seasons, from 2014 until about 2016. Staumont and Barlow, for the most part, have continued their success in 2022, but then there's Jake Brentz. The lefty from Manchester, Missouri appeared in a team leading 72 games last season, which was also his first season in the major leagues, but so far in 2022, he has been, shall we say, not very good. His earned run average in 8 games pitched has been, and this is not a typo or misread, 23.63, and he's put up an ERA plus of 17, which is a staggering 83% below league average. He's put up that 23.63 ERA during a season in which team offenses are hitting at an all-time low, and in a year where the league average ERA is 3.76. That number alone is alarming, and because of this, his career ERA has spiked by about 1.5 points. But that's okay, maybe he's just had some very bad luck. That can happen early in the season. Some slow hits that are usually outs don't go your way, or maybe there's been some shoddy defense behind him. That might be easier to believe if his below-the-surface stats weren't so bad as well. The expected batting average on balls he's allowed in play is .341, which is in the bottom 3% of the league. His average fastball velocity has dipped over 1 mile an hour, and he's in the bottom 1% of the league in walk rate, walking over a quarter of the hitters he's faced, and he's allowing more hard contact and higher launch angles than he ever has before, which is a combination that is just destined for disaster. But what could have caused this sudden drop-off from his 2021 production? First off, that 3.66 ERA that Brentz had in 2021 is just his cumulative season ERA. During the last month of that season, though, his ERA was at 6.52, which most people chalked up to him being tired from pitching his 72 games a year after not having a season at all due to COVID. Relievers are already really volatile, and that's just in the nature of the position. Maybe Brentz is one of the most extreme cases of this that we've ever seen. But on April 30th, we got probably our clearest answer as to what was up with him, when he was placed on the disabled list with a left flexor strain. For everyone's sakes, let's hope that this is what was causing him issues this season, because it would be a shame to see him phase so quickly. After producing his hit single Smooth in 1999, Carlos Santana decided to hang up the guitar and put on the baseball spikes to live out his dream of playing Major League Baseball. Okay, that might not be exactly what happened, but the bottom line is that this Carlos Santana is the Royals' starting first baseman in 2022. The longtime Cleveland Indian first baseman came to Kansas City hoping to provide an offensive spark, but after a second half of 2021 in which he hit for a 176 batting average with only 4 home runs and a 500 OPS, most people were hoping that 2022 would see him bounce back in a big way. That just hasn't been the case though, as there have been multiple statistical categories that Santana has dipped from even his 2021 production. Percentage of hard hit balls, batting average, slugging percentage have all taken a sharp decline, but interestingly, so has his swing rate on pitches outside of the zone. Carlos has always been known as one of the most patient hitters in the league, but this might be to a fault, as taking pitches closer to the strike zone inherently leads to taking more called strikes. His pitch selection also hasn't been very good, as his percentage of swinging on the first pitches has skyrocketed almost 9% from last season, And there have been multiple times where he swung at the first pitch and popped the ball up on the infield, which is probably the worst outcome that you can have as a hitter. Seeing his dramatic drop in production last year continue into this year, it's probably reasonable to conclude that Santana is washed. He's 36 years old at this point and nearing the end of his baseball career, and the Royals might be forced to cut their losses and designate him for assignment. His 2022 season is even worse than Omar Infante's last season as a Royal, which is a comparison that no one should ever have to make. A short-term solution could be to move Hunter Dozier back to first base, where he played most of his games in 2018. Dozier's swinging the bat decently enough to warrant that move, but something a little more outside the box would be to have Salvador Perez take over at first base, which he's going to have to do at some point in the future anyway, and have the recently called up MJ Melendez split time catching with Cam Gallagher as soon as the latter returns from the disabled list. Calling up top prospect Nick Pratto is also another good option, as he had 36 home runs in the minor leagues last season and is off to a really good start this year as well, hitting 5 home runs with an .802 OPS in Omaha. Okay, I'm just going to say it. I was scrutinized by the Royals community when I said it in 2019, but it was an absolute disaster to not have traded Whit Merrifield either in the middle or after the end of the 2019 season. His trade value was at its absolute peak, but general manager Dayton Moore opted not to trade him and instead signed him to an extension before the season that would keep him in Kansas City until the end of his age 35 season. And that was just my issue with it. Whit is too old to contribute at a meaningful level to the next Royals championship team. We're seeing the results of his age this season, with not only his batting average and OPS, which are abysmal, but he also isn't hitting the ball hard at all. His hardest exit velocity in 2022 has been 104 miles an hour, which puts him in the 19th percentile of major league hitters, and his average exit velocity of 87.1 puts him in the 21st. His strikeout rate's been great, striking out only 12.9% of the time, but that doesn't matter much when he's hitting 139 with a 346 OPS as of the recording of this video. What's worse is the team's insistence that he play every day. He's led the major leagues in at-bats in each of the last 3 seasons and has played 496 consecutive games as of May 11th, the longest active streak in baseball. This has allowed him to put up big numbers, leading the league in hits in 2018 and 19 and stolen bases in 2017, 18, and 21, but he just isn't able to replicate those stats, and all he might need is a day off. It shouldn't be an admission of weakness to sit a game or two, and it could very much be for the betterment of the team, as the recently called up Emmanuel Rivera can fill a spot for a day. His decline could also be because he is hitting fly balls at a higher rate than he ever has in his career by a substantial margin. Coming into this year, his fly ball percentage was 24.5%, but that spiked in 2022, as his percentage this year is all the way up to 32.9%. It's easier said than done, but focusing on line drives and hitting the ball on the ground should be his focus, especially with his still elite speed of 28.4 feet per second. Santana and Merrifield's struggles are only part of the overall problem, which is that this offense is just not producing runs, like at all. Let me just list off some numbers to show how bad this team's offense has been. A .219 batting average, a .594 OPS, 183 runners left on base, and an 88.8 average exit velocity. In the league today, those numbers rank 26th, 27th, 21st, and 30th out of the 30 teams in baseball. The Royals' offense has been anemic, but there really isn't a clear solution in sight. The one bright spot is that they don't strike out much, as they have the least strikeouts in baseball, but that can be attributed to them playing the least games because of rainout. And that's about the most positive thing that you can say about the Royals hitters, as they only have 2 qualified hitters that are hitting above .230 with Andrew Benintendi and Hunter Dozier. Only 3 hitters have multiple home runs, and no one's driving in any runs. And I get it. In 2022, batting average means as little as it ever has before, but getting hits and scoring runs is ultimately how you win baseball games, and they have done nothing of the sort. The best pitchers that the Royals have are Brad Keller and Zach Greinke, who honestly have been 2 of the only bright spots for the team this year. And in the games that those 2 have started, the Royals have scored 19 and 14 runs in each of their 6 games started, respectively, which ends up pitting them with tough luck losses. Nowhere has this been more apparent than when the Royals have runners in scoring position. When there are runners on second and third base, their hitters have been even more putrid than usual, grounding into 8 double plays, striking out in 26.4% of their at-bats, and in the first 27 games of the season, they've only hit .209 with runners in scoring position, and I am not making up this stat, I swear. They have not hit a single home run in those situations, and they've only had 6 doubles in terms of extra base hits. I don't even know how to put into words about how terrible that is. But that's the state of the 2022 Royals at the moment, and until things change, this is the team that we're going to continue to see out on the field, on pace for 58 wins and 104 losses, which would match the 2018 team and be the 7th 100-loss season in team history, the 3rd in the last 5 years. There are some promising signs as Bobby Witt Jr. started to heat up and some prospects have made their debuts, but more roster overhaul is going to need to happen in order to turn this season around. I'm looking at you, Ryan O'Hearn. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope that seeing this video and hearing from the perspective of someone who's sat through a lot of losing baseball over the last few years can open your eyes as to what needs to happen with this team. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and with that, you have reached the end. Thank you guys.